What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back in another Squiddy. Today, let's talk about the OCG ban list because this just dropped today and it is a very hot topic in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about it, but more specifically, I kind of wanted to talk about some key points. And I was a little surprised by some of the hits on the OCG list, but as we know, is a pattern in the past. A lot of times, the TCG ban list does draw influence directly from the OCG because, again, Konami Japan seems to be like the forerunners of the entire game. They're kind of in charge. Any changes on the TCG limited list by R&D tends to go through Konami Japan for approval, and it seems like in the past couple of lists, things that have been hit on the OCG ban list have actually migrated over here to the TCG. Now, the same is also true for the vice versa. For example, in this case, Heroic Champion as well as Chaos Ruler. But generally, from what I've seen in the past, a lot of times when things get hit on the OCG list, the same sort of hits get hit on the TCG list. Like, we've had things like Dryden go away. We've had a plethora of other cards, I think, that were kind of on the similar vein. So, without further ado, let's just kind of dive in. I mean, these Shuffler, or the Millers rather, going away, I think this is something that everyone should have predicted. Like, this should definitely happen to the TCG as well. These cards are just unfair. These are not good card design. This one card allows you to potentially snowball into like a +10 if you get lucky. Like, it's just crazy, right? Even milling two separate things is a free +2. This advantage is coming directly from your deck, so it's not like you're spending cards to get to those resources. And I think as a whole in the game, these cards are just way too busted, especially in a deck like Tier Elements. And sooner or later, they're probably going to go in the TCG as well. In fact, I would almost predict that they potentially get banned on the following list if Tier proves to be the Tier 1 deck that everyone's anticipating it is for the current TCG format. Because, again, previously we had 3 Magnamuts, we had a Rise Heart in the format, a lot of gate blockers for the actual Tier Elements deck. And now that we've finally gotten rid of those cards, this deck is probably going to shine in some capacity. And I would imagine that eventually, if Tiers does stop topping a lot, then these cards will definitely get banned in the TCG as well. Chaos Ruler was a long-time ban-worthy card, especially in the OCG. The one reason that Tier Elements were so good in their atmosphere especially was the existence of Chaos Ruler, because you can easily make it with something like a Revolution Synchron or E-Tally if they happen to play the Punk engine. And it allows you to get so much advantage in tiers because, number one, you're milling 5 cards, but you also get to add back a free card of your choosing, which is just busted. And then this card also comes back as another body after you make something like a Baron de Fleur or whatever, right? So this card had to see its days, and I'm so glad that TCG recognized that early on and we were able to get this toxic card out of the environment because it's way too good as a generic level 8. In fact, it's probably the best level 8 synchro in the entire game. That's how good this card is. It just does way too much, and I'm glad that they got rid of it. Same with Heroic Champion. I'm not even sure if this card was really prevalent in the OCG metagame, but I guess people were saying that it potentially was sometimes, so it's good that they kind of got rid of this as well. Sooner or later, like, even the existence of Maxi keeping decks like that in check, it's not a failsafe. They still have things like Crossout Designator, Called By, Ash, and it's just not good having a degenerate card in the format, so it's good that they took care of that as well. The limited cards are the ones that kind of surprised me the most. Tier Elements Catch Tier, I did not see this coming because, again, guys, in the OCG, the Tier Elements are very, very hit. They had way more hits than we did in the TCG, okay? They had Rhino Heart to 1 previously on the current list, and they also had the Field Spell to 1 as well. So that already makes their deck so much weaker than our deck in the TCG, because one Field Spell obviously cripples the entire deck's consistency, and then one Rhino makes it harder for you to actually make Kaleido Heart very easily without something like a King of the Swamp substitution. And I'm really, really surprised that after even banning some millers, they went even further beyond to limit Tier Elements Kalos, or Tier Elements Catch Tier rather, because obviously this card is very good. You get to mill 5 cards per turn if you use multiple copies, but I wouldn't have expected them to make the tier hits even further beyond, but they probably realized that OCG players just love tier mints, so hitting this probably keeps the deck extra in check. But I've already seen deck recipes trending on Twitter where people are already playing Tier Elements in the new OCG format, and apparently they're still playable, so who knows. But it's just crazy that they also hit this card. This card being at 3 in the TCG means that you can play on your opponent's turn as well, search it for follow-up. It's just such a critical card in the Tier Elements deck, so I think this is actually a crucial hit in the OCG. So I'm not sure how good the deck will be, to be honest. I'm sure there are better options than playing a very watered-down, essentially hardened concrete version of Tiers, because you basically have one of everything. Block Dragon to 1, I really would have liked to see this card go, and I'm sure a lot of OCG players agreed. This is a very, very sacky card that can also be searched easily off something like a Foolish Burial or any card that mills, or Gallic Granite, the level 4 XYZ, who can also search it to your hand. I think the key component of this card being broken in the OCG especially is the fact that they have grass at 2. So they actually hit this card to 1, so it's a lot less of a chance for them to actually mill it off of grass, right? So that's understandable. It's a step in the right direction. But honestly, a Dragon Ruler that allows you to go potentially +3 and more should not be in the game. Like, this card was absolutely busted in the TCG. It doesn't matter that we don't have Maxi. It doesn't matter that Maxi is in the OCG. I still think this card should have been hit to 0, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually do in the future. Now, the semi-limits were kind of interesting. So Rescue Ace, I could definitely agree with that. You know, trying to hit the consistency of the deck a little bit before actually neutering it down. It was one of the tier 1 decks in the OCG, but it was not like super toxic, right? It was still manageable by all means. And same with Purely, I think that was another tier 1 deck. Even though they already have 1 Sleepy Memory, that was a previous list hit. Now they're getting 2 Delicious, so that means you're not guaranteed Delicious off of My Friend, which is also decently good, because now they have to kind of roll off that 66% chance. So they're kind of like stuck in a hard spot, but it doesn't really matter because they can still like replace the other copy with Sleepy, so it kind of like they're guaranteed to set up the board still. So I don't really think it hurts that deck as much. And Rivalry, I'm a little surprised that they actually hit this. I didn't think this card was that sided, but I guess it was actually sided in certain decks. And I'm glad they're hitting Floodgates, because I think the TCG would definitely need to start hitting some of these powerful Floodgates like Rivalry, Goes in Match. There can be only one. These cards, when they're good, they're absolutely insane, right? It's so one-sided, and these cards are never really healthy for the game. Even though we have outs like Cosmic Cyclone, it just promotes a very, very awkward game space where you have to main deck those cards. And when those cards happen to be bad against the rest of a player's deck, then in game 1, it just means that you're floodgated down because you're not going to be main decking those cards. So in my opinion, like, these cards should always get hit. Going to 2 definitely helps the consistency, so I'm glad for that. I think the Dark Worm was a little surprising. They actually still had it, I think, at 1. I don't know why. And also Gursu as well, just slowly coming back. Remember, they do have the Harp Horror as well. But, I mean, Max C is prevalent in this format. We have Bystials. We have a lot more things to deal with the Orcus that we previously didn't have, like 2 or 3 years ago, back when it was running rampant with the Engage engine. So having, I think, those answers helps mitigate it a little bit so we can start playing around with this. I'm surprised that they hit Map and Diagram. I guess Map, yeah, it is a pretty good card, so hitting the consistency a little bit, it's marginal. But again, Flu does brick a lot, so like hitting micro hits like this actually does help against the deck because it makes it so they don't draw consistently, which is always a good thing. They should definitely hit, obviously, Featherstorm and potentially Shifter even harder, but I definitely see why Konami hasn't done that yet. They just don't like hitting toxic cards for some reason. Anti-Spell is still in the format for both formats, so the Dragonic Diagram is also interesting. I guess it's a way for them to experiment. And then to 3, we have the Bike, which previously went to 1, I believe. And they still have the Link Monster. But again, Maxi makes their format so different. The Meow Mew is previously semi-limited, I believe. I don't know why. This deck is kind of like dead, especially with the Maxi format. And Trickstar Light Stage is interesting. I believe this card is already at 2 or 3 in the TCG already. So, like, I don't think anyone was really playing it. I know the OCGs loved Trickstars. Back in the day, they would splash it into everything. But, oh yeah, this card is actually at 3 in the TCG. So they just brought it back to 3 from 2 in the OCG, I believe. I don't think it'll really do much. And Armageddon Knight, same thing. It's kind of seen its time as a one-card starter nowadays. It's just not going to fly, especially with the Bystials. So, all in all, I mean, now taking a look at the ban list, just like really quickly, my thoughts. I feel like these hits definitely might happen in the TCG, like the Miller's going to 0. So that's just one thing to be wary of. But I think tier limits would still be good in the TCG. It'd be a lot worse, but I don't see them hitting the deck like super hard where they'd ban the Millers and also start hitting the field spell and stuff like that. It's probably just like ban the Millers and move on type deal, I would imagine, for an impending ban list, if that happens to be the case. Like, we don't even know that tournaments are that good, right? We think they're good based on like a paper educated guess, but they could just be falling out of the meta as soon as we get the new set of Agov as well, because there's so many impactful cards for other decks in that set. So we don't really know what's going to happen, but I could definitely see these being on Konami's hit list for the TCG. Other things, I don't really think tier limits kick Hellos. I mean, the rest of these cards are already banned in the TCG, so they're just lagging indicator in the OCG. I could see, we purely could get hit again. We could see Sleepy go to 1. That's probably like the next logical hit, but I don't know that they would hit any more than that. Like, they could hit like My Friend, but I feel like that just hurts the deck a lot more. So potentially if they just deal with Sleepy, it's probably either My Friend or Sleepy to 1. Probably one of those two, in my opinion, that they'll probably do. Rescue Ways, I don't think it'll get hit immediately because we are only getting the new Diabell Star / Sinful Spoil stuff in the upcoming set. So I imagine Konami will give us at least a format or two to play around with those. If anything, we could definitely see a potential semi-limit to Airlifter or maybe Hydrant just to hit the consistency of the deck, but make sure it's still playable. I honestly don't see TCG Konami hitting cards like Rivalry immediately because they would have done that a long time ago if they actually planned on doing it. Although I really hope that they hit cards that are actually very generically degenerate, like D-Barrier or Anti-Spell Fragrance, because those are a lot more applicable essentially to every deck going first, right? And they're just very, very one-sided against basically every deck. So ideally, those are the cards that need to be hit that have the maximum target on their back before cards like Rivalry and Goes to Match get hit, because these cards can only be played in niche decks, right? It's same with the Chameleon one. You have to play a deck that only plays like different types, right? So it's very like nitpicky compared to D-Barrier and Anti-Spell. Gersu, we already have that, so it doesn't matter. Potentially Harp Horror could come back. I mean, we have the Bystials, we have like DD Crow, it doesn't really matter. I don't see this deck making a super high impact at 1 Harp Horror. And potentially Diagram as well, but I mean, Diagram would be better than Masterpiece. Also, like other decks can experiment splashing in Diagram, like Dinos and stuff like that. So potentially they could bring that to 2. And then I could definitely see the Field Spell for Flu being hit to 2 as well, just to hit the consistency. If not, they could just take it one step further and please just ban Shifter and also Featherstorm. I mean, that would just be ideal, right? Like, Flu is not toxic because of the engine. The engine is very well balanced. Any deck could, like, essentially deal with that one-on-one. But it's just their non-engine cards that are so powerful, and when they have so many ways to dig through them, when they have, like, Pot of Duality plus Pot of Prosperity plus deck thinning, it's like, look at the top 10 cards of their deck after they're done deck thinning half, so you're guaranteed to hit, like, one of the Featherstorm or, like, a Trap Trick or a Thrust to set that Harpy's Featherstorm. And then the rest, Armageddon Knight, I'm surprised this is actually still on the actual TCG list. Like, I don't think this card does anything. I definitely think it could come back to 3. I don't think it's very degenerate by any means. It was limited around the Goki period where we didn't have necessarily as many tools like the Bystials to deal with stuff. And then Super Heavy Samurai is fine where it is. Meow Moo, I don't think it'd come back. We don't have Max C, and this Prank Kids deck is just really, really obnoxious to deal with. Like, you guys remember how it was. Just summoning a bunch of monsters and doing the same full combo. It was pretty boring. Honestly, I would prefer to have this banned. And we already have Light Stage at 3, so that's about it. But I mean, looking at the OCG lists are always a good indicator of what might happen in the TCG, so it's good to kind of anticipate that. Basically, anytime that the OCG hits something and the same kind of the deck is still as good in the TCG as the OCG. Generally, we get the same hits, but we have had differences as well. If you look at Kastura, like they hit a Rise Heart instead of hitting all the monsters to 1. I mean, Fenrir's banned in the OCG, so that's a big difference. So like, we can't take everything we see at face value, but I'm just saying based on the other ban lists that we've had, there have been some stuff that are similar, especially when cards get banned or cards go to 1. So I would definitely look at this list and just keep it in the back of your guys' head. If you are playing some decks, you can kind of get a sense of what they might potentially hit. So yeah, that's about all I had for this video. If you guys have any comments or thoughts on the ban list of the OCG, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Other than that, we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.